Atira manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kuja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kuja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All together. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutiraye Nasta Preshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Lashtiki. Translation. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasa Dev, the author. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, so today we're going to be going through the 25 first verses of chapter 6 of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1. But before we start going through the verses, can someone remind me of what we've learned so far, or last class?
Last class we got Narada's backstory.
Yes, that is a fact. Anything else you remember? So like Nate said, we heard about Narada Muni's past story. The reason why he brought up this story is because Vyasadeva was asking, what is the root of my dissatisfaction? And so Narada talked a lot, but he also mentioned his past life. And then he concluded with this specific instruction, which was that you should be glorifying the activities and transcendental qualities of the Lord. And so, yeah, now we're going to pursue the discussion. So if someone would like to read text 1, like everyone can go on the one, like we usually do.
Sutta said, O Brahmanas, thus hearing all about Sri Narada's birth and activities, Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God and the son of Satyavati, inquired as follows.
Sri Vasudeva said, what did you, Narada, do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in the scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth?
O son of Brahma, how did you pass your life after initiation? And how did you attain this body, having quit your old one in due course?
O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course. So how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to this day of Brahma, is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by time?
Sri Narada said, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way.
I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with a tie of affection.
She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master.
Okay, I just want to pause here. So it says everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. So everyone is us, and the puppet master is Krishna. And what I wanted to say in regards to this is that you're going to see in the following verses that some things happen, which is kind of difficult. And I think everyone here can relate to going through some difficulties in their life. And I just wanted to remind everyone through this verse that everything is under Krishna's control. So if there's anything that happens in anyone's life, it's actually Krishna's will. And from our limited vision, sometimes we can think that, for example, we lose someone, like someone passes away, or a friendship dies, or we're refused to the university we wanted to go through, like whatever it is, we'll think that, you know, we have bad luck, or like we're poverty stricken, and like something negative. But from a higher vision, from a spiritual vision, what seems negative to our eyes in a dualistic world isn't necessarily negative in Krishna's eyes. The way he arranges things comes from somewhere. There's always a reason behind it. And so maybe you lost someone because they weren't good for your progress in the future in your life. Maybe someone passed away because they couldn't get anything else from this life and they needed to move on to the next. Maybe you were refused somewhere there's always a reason. There's always a reason. And sometimes it's a bit more positive, like I just described. And sometimes it's just because, well, in your past life, you did something really bad and then it has, like, the scales have to be balanced. So whenever we go through anything of the sort, to remember that Krishna is in control and it's in his will, can help us go through it with faith, understanding that there's a greater reason to whatever it is that we're going through, something bigger than whatever it is that we're capable of seeing in our physical circumstances. Okay. Yes.
To be a wooden doll, do you have to be surrendered unto Krishna, or is everyone a wooden doll whether or not you know it?
So the material world is governed by the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And those three modes of material nature ultimately are coming from Krishna. Every single conditioned being, from the ant to the human to the demigods, are under the control of those three modes. We don't actually have any freedom. We're just made believe that we do. Just like I'm giving you free will, you can make your own decisions. But ultimately, if you make a wrong decisions, you suffer from it. And if you make a good decision, then you'll have good results. So whatever it is that you do, ultimately you're under something's control. And that something is the three modes. Now, when you're a devotee and you're surrendered, you transcend those three modes and you become directly under the control of Krishna. So ultimately, everyone is under Krishna's control because even the three modes are under Krishna's control. But it's indirect because it's like material nature is energy, whereas devotees are directly under Krishna's control. He's going to use them even against the laws of nature to fulfill his will.
Against the laws of nature.
Yeah, sometimes Krishna will go even against the laws of nature to fulfill his desires. Can I think of an example? Yeah. There's that. There was like a prophecy. There was a prophecy that. Okay, I'm not going to say that properly because I don't know it properly. But there was a prophecy in the Mahabharata that at a certain time, like some eclipse or something, if you did this specific ritual, like you would become very, very powerful in some way. Like you would get some very powerful boon. And so the Kauravas, is that the right word? Okay, the Kauravas, she's like, I called you Shri. Okay. The Kauravas, they wanted to do this ritual on that day so that they could defeat the Pandavas. And then Krishna got to know about it and he was like, no, not gonna let this happen. And so what he did is that he influenced the kind of eclipse and he made everything go dark before the eclipse. And so the Kauravas, they made all these sacrifices at the wrong time, thinking it was the eclipse because everything had gone dark. And then everything went back light and they thought, oh, now we're gonna win. Like now we got this. And Krishna was like, nope. Because then they did the ritual and then they got the powers. So yeah, that's the story. He can do these kind of things. Sometimes he'll also use you like in a way that's different from your nature. Or he'll use your nature, like qualities that seem bad to do something good. For example, that's a personal example. A devotee that I know, and he has like a very hot temper, but he's a very advanced devotee. And when he preaches, even though you would think that like, oh, like he's so hot tempered, like people are gonna be like turned off or something, he's like so connected that people are just pulled to him and he's like super good at preaching. So it's like Krishna will use everything. to serve his will, even things that you would think are bad about your personality. Or okay.
Thank you. When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in the Brahmana school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands.
Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent influenced by supreme time.
I took this as a special mercy, of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees, and so thinking, I started for the north.
Okay, so I want to step here too because it's related to what we just discussed about. He said, I took this as special mercy. So his mother died, and instead of lamenting and feeling sorry for himself, he took it as mercy from Krishna. And that it comes back to the point of like everything happens for a reason, but also it made me think when I read this that events in our lives that seems to be bad are also kind of a type of purification. If you're betrayed by someone, if you're abandoned, or if you're rejected, somehow your ego is learning something and you're becoming more humble and more tolerant and more patient, and you're learning to find satisfaction like in your relationship with God rather than externally. So there's many ways that we can see bad things happening, but one of the other ones I wanted to point out here is the purification aspect of it, where maybe anarthas, or like, how do you say that in English? Impurities are being purified. For example, that's not an example of impurities being purified, but it's an example of something bad happening to a devotee that we know very well and who took it as mercy. Srila Prabhupada didn't have the greatest relationship with his wife, and he was arguing one day with her, telling her that she should quit drinking tea, and she didn't want to quit drinking tea. And so Prabhupada gave her an ultimatum. He was like, okay, well, it's your tea or it's me. And then she said, well, I'm choosing the tea. And so Prabhupada, instead of lamenting over the situation, he took it as special mercy, and it gave him motivation to take sannyas. If he hadn't done that, he wouldn't have come here. He wouldn't have preached the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. So yeah, like bad events really can be seen as special mercy. There's really a good, there's always something behind everything. And sometimes it's greater than we think. And we might only be able to see it in the long term. Here, I wanted to ask if anyone here would like to share a personal experience where they thought something was bad for them, and in the long term, it ended up being a good thing.
So when I was like 18 to like 22, I was like in trouble legally for several years, like in and out. And I would be like, in jail. And like looking back, I really like lamented, like when I was there, I really hated being there. But like now that I'm out, I see that like, I'm like grateful for, now that I'm out and like have a different mindset, I'm grateful that like police officers exist to correct people when they're like really messing up, and that jails exist for people to just like recollect their thoughts and like really reflect on what they're doing.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we can continue.
After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests.
I passed through the hills and mountains, full of reservoirs of various minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers, fit for the denizens of heaven, decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds.
I passed alone through many forests of rushes, bamboo reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerous, fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals.
Thus traveling, I felt tired, both bodily and mentally, and I was both thirsty and hungry. So I took a bath in a river lake and also drank water. By contacting water, I got relief from my exhaustion.
After that, under the shadow of a banyan tree in the uninhabited forest, I began to meditate on supersoul situated within, using my intelligence, as I've heard, liberated soul.
As soon as I began to meditate upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, with my mind transformed in transcendental love, tears rolled down my eyes, and without delay, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, appeared on the lotus of my heart.
O Vyasadeva, at that time, being exceedingly overpowered by feelings of happiness, every part of my body became separately enlivened. Being absorbed in an ocean of ecstasy, I could not see both myself and the Lord.
The transcendental form of the Lord as it is satisfies the mind's desire and at once erases all mental incongruities. Upon losing that form, I suddenly got up, being perturbed as is usual when one loses that which is desirable.
I desire to see again the transcendental form of the Lord, but despite my attempts to concentrate upon the heart with eagerness to view the form again, I cannot see him anymore, and thus dissatisfied, I was very much aggrieved.
Seeing my attempts in that lonely place, the personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all mundane description, spoke to me with gravity and pleasing words just to mitigate my grief.
Next verse is our verse for today.
As the Lord spoke, I regret that during this lifetime you will not be able to see me anymore. Those who are incomplete in service and who are not completely free from the material modes of material taints can hardly.
You have only once seen my person, and this is just to increase your desire for me. Because the more you hanker for me, the more you'll be freed from all material desires.
By service of the absolute truth, even for a few days, a devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds.
Let's devotion cannot be thwarted at any time, even at the time of creation as well as at the time of annihilation. Your remembrance will continue by my mercy.
Then that supreme authority, personified by sound and unseen eyes, most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offered my obeisances unto bowing my head.
Okay, this is our last one, so let's go to 21st. Hantasmin janmani bhavan mamam drashtumiharati avipakva kashayana Durdarshoham kuyoginam. Antasmin janmane bhavan. Mamam drashtumihati. Avipagvakashayanam. Durdarsho aham kuyoginam. Antasmin janmane bhavan. Mamam drashtumiharati. Avipagvakashayanam. Durdarshoham kuyoginam. Antasmin janmane bhavan. Mamam drashtumiharati.
Antasmin janmani bhavan.
Antasmin janmane bhavan. Mamam drashtumiharati. Avipagvakashayanam. Durdarshoham kuyoginam. Antasmin janmane bhavan. Mamam drashtumiharati. Avipagvakashayanam. Durdarshoham kuyoginam. Okay, can I get someone to read the purport? Yeah. The personality of Godhead is described in the Bhagavad Gita as the most pure, the supreme, and the absolute truth. There is no trace of a tinge of materiality in his person, and thus one who has the slightest tinge of material affection cannot approach him. The beginning of devotional service starts from the point when one is freed from at least two forms of material modes, namely the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance. The result is exhibited by the signs of being freed from kama, lust, and lobha, covetousness. That is to say, one must be freed from the desires for sense satisfaction and avarice for sense gratification. The balanced mode of nature is goodness, and to be completely freed from all material tinges is to become free from the mode of goodness also. To search the audience of God in a lonely forest is considered to be the mode of goodness. One can go out into the forest to attain spiritual perfection, but that does not mean that one can see the Lord personally there. One must be completely freed from all material attachment and be situated on the plane of transcendence, which alone will help the devotee get in personal touch with the personality of Godhead. The best method is that one should live in a place where the transcendental form of the Lord is worshipped. The temple of the Lord is a transcendental place, whereas the forest is a materially good habitation. A neophyte devotee is always recommended to worship the deity of the Lord, Archana, rather than go into the forest to search out the Lord. Devotional service begins from the process of Archana, which is better than going out in the forest in the present life, which is completely freed from all material hankerings. Sri Narada Muni does not go into the forest, although he can turn every place into Vaikuntha by his presence only. He travels from one planet to another to convert men, gods, kinnaras, gandharvas, rishis, munis, and all others to become devotees of the Lord. By his activities, he has engaged many devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and many others in the transcendental service of the Lord. A pure devotee of the Lord, therefore, follows in the footsteps of the great devotees like Narada and Prahlad and engages his whole time in glorifying the Lord by the process of kirtan. Such a preaching process is transcendental to all material qualities. Okay. So, I want to ask you a question. What is the motivation behind the desire of making progress in the path of bhakti? Yes?
Freedom.
Good. Anything else? Yes? Yes? It's good. Yes? Get out of sufferings. Yeah. That's all true. So ultimately, the purpose of bhakti is to remember our lost relationship or forgotten relationship with Lord Krishna. We're all looking for happiness. We're all looking for love. We're all searching in some way or other for emotional fulfillment, and we don't really find it completely to full satisfaction. So the process of bhakti is meant to reawaken this love that has been contaminated by the modes, so that we can come back to our original position and be happy in the service of Krishna. Now, what's just been said basically is that Krishna gave a glimpse of himself to Narada while he was meditating, and then he disappeared. Do you remember why Krishna showed himself to Narada? Yeah. To increase his desire, to give him motivation, right? So, no matter our level, whether we're very much beginners or very more advanced on a path of bhakti, we might get glimpses sometimes of what it feels like to actually be in our constitutional position. That can happen to people sometimes in very ecstatic kirtans, or you're having really, really good japa like this one day, or you're listening to a class with a very exalted devotee and then you just get a realization. Those little glimpses where you feel like a deeper connection with Krishna, or when you actually feel feelings for Krishna, or you miss Krishna, or you feel sad and you're like, I want to go back, those feelings that are more potent, more intense, they're meant to motivate you. They're meant to be like, okay, look, if you come towards me, this is how you're going to feel 24/7. So I just want you to know, I just want you to give you a little glimpse of how it feels like, so that you know what you're endeavoring for. And then you get your motivation to actually move forward on your path and keep making efforts. Yeah, so one more thing I wanted to mention in regards to that, in relation to that, is that let's say you've experienced something like this, where you're feeling very ecstatic in your service and you're really enjoying your service, or you're super happy during kirtan, and then you kind of go down and you don't have much taste in your service anymore, or you lose motivation in some ways or something like that. I wanted to say that, let's say that this is not a case of you did an offense and whatever, it just randomly happens. You're like, why did I lose motivation? What happened to me? Don't get discouraged, because however you were made to feel, if you didn't stay there in that feeling and it didn't remain steady, it just means that you were not there. You know what I mean? It's like when you're at this, there's 9 stages of bhakti, right? One of them is anartha nivritti, which is the one that I think most devotees are at, is the stage of purification. So when you're in that stage, you can get glimpses of the upper stage after that, which are like steadiness, attachment, love, pure love, like all the ones that we're aiming for, right? And you can get glimpses of these, but because you're still in the purification state, how do you know you're in the purification state? You still have material desires. You still feel lust. You still want to gratify your senses. Then you're still at the purification stage. And if you have glimpses and you think, oh, I'm doing so great, like I'm advancing so much, which might be true, it doesn't mean that if you're still like purifying yourself, you still have material desires, it doesn't mean that you've reached like the higher loving stage. So the reason why I'm saying this is because you might think that you went down once you go through this higher feelings and you feel like you made a lot of advancement, and then you go back down and you don't feel as excited and motivated anymore. You might think, oh, like I stepped back in my devotional service. But that's not true. Krishna just gave you a glimpse of what it'll be like when you're actually going to be at a higher stage. And that's meant to motivate you, not discourage you. So if you see yourself going through highs and lows, like don't be hard on yourself. That's normal. Like no one is perfect in this material world. We're all conditioned beings. We're all endeavoring to get out of this. So we're going to go through ups and downs, and the purification process sometimes can be long, but that's okay because we've been through a lot. Like who knows how long we've been here, like innumerable lives. So yeah, just wanted to let you know that you got to be patient with yourself through the ups and downs, and whatever glimpses you see that are temporarily there, if they fade away, don't be alarmed. Krishna just wanted to give you a little vision of how it's going to be like when you actually become established in that higher feeling for God and for devotional service. Okay, so how do we make advancement? Here, basically, Krishna is saying to Narada, like, you're not going to see me again. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, like I said, he gave a glimpse of himself to Narada so that he feels a motivation to continue on his path. But he's not just going to give himself like this. Like Narada is going to have to make some efforts, like make some devotional service to please Krishna. So what is to be done? How can we make progress? Okay, one thing that is mentioned in the purport is deity worship. That's one of the things that is mentioned. And the reason why deity worship is so potent, it's because being in a material body, we have a material vision of things mostly. And to not be able to see Krishna with our physical eyes, not be able to touch Krishna with our bodies, can make it really difficult for us because of our consciousness to create a personal relationship with him. So through deity worship, you get to actually see Krishna, touch Krishna's body, exchange with Krishna in some way. And so it's easier in our state of consciousness to create a relationship with him. And the deity does reciprocate. If you worship the deity, whatever you do, like arti, offering food, dressing them, you'll feel something in return. And it could be manifested as like a feeling, like maybe you'll feel like very satisfied, or maybe you'll see Krishna smiling at you, or maybe you'll see his eyes glitter, or maybe he'll manifest himself in the form of a devotee who'll be like, wow, you did such a great service today. Yeah, so deity worship is a really good one. Then the most important one that is mentioned at the end of the purport is kirtana. So kirtana, especially in this age, is the best devotional service that we can do because it's accessible to everyone and it's very attractive. Like anyone who hears us, like when we do kirtan, I'm like, what is this? Like, I want to know, like, I'm curious, like, this sounds good. Like, I like the drums and stuff. Like, people are attracted to kirtana. Kirtan, I think, is more than just music. I think it's just, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's just like glorifying the Lord. I call it the Lord, right? So it can be through talking about Krishna, like in class, or it could be like making an audiobook, like any type of preaching that glorifies the Lord. But Harinam Sankirtan is especially attractive. Now, what makes Harinam Sankirtan? I know I'm almost out of time, so I'm trying to. Anyways, what makes Harinam Sankirtan more effective? Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's very close to what I was gonna say. I was gonna say that Sankirtan or Kirtana is more effective when it's done with feeling. It's more effective for yourself, but it's also more effective to attract other people. Prabhupada said, I think it's in the Nectar of Devotion, because that's what I'm reading right now. But he said that it's easier to chant focusing on an emotion than it is focusing on a thought. So if you, like, we had a class one day and someone said, like, do you focus on remembrance when you chant, or do you focus on hearing? And we concluded that hearing was the best, and that's true. But Prabhupada also said that you should be focusing on an emotion for Krishna, because necessarily your mind is going to go somewhere. Like, it's not like you can stop the mind. That's just not possible. And so you might try to like focus your mind on by looking at a picture of Krishna, which is good, or by thinking of his pastimes, like whatever you do. But ultimately, the nature of the mind is to be wavery. Like, it's going to change. It's going to keep shifting, and it's not going to be satisfied with whatever you try to feed it. Emotions are deeper. They give more of an imprint. They're easier to remain into. It's like when you're happy because something nice happened to you, and then the feeling stays with you throughout the day. Or like you have a really bad dream and then you're moody the whole day. Like, emotions stay. If you try to focus on an emotion that you feel for Krishna while you're chanting japa, you're gonna feel it more profoundly. And it's the same thing for kirtan as well. There's also something else said in the Nectar of Devotion, is that bhakti, the process of bhakti yoga, requires one's heart to be soft and easily moved. That's literally what is said. If your heart is hard or cold because of, I don't know, like you've been through something, you closed up your heart, you lost faith, like whatever it is, that will actually be a blockage in your path to bhakti, because bhakti is all about love. So you need a soft, open heart to truly make advancement in your chanting and in kirtana. And so one of my last point is, how do we open the heart? Well, one way to open the heart that I find very effective is to write and recite out loud prayers to Krishna, like one-on-one, as if he was at, like, he's there, and like you're talking with him and you're opening up to him. Personally, every night, like every single night, I'll look at my deities and I'll tell them what happened throughout the day. the good things, the bad things, emotions, events, problems, everything. And not like, and it's important when that happens to do it very sincerely. So let's say I'm experiencing very like negative emotions like envy or greed, or like those dark, heavy things that you wouldn't want to admit yourself that you're feeling. Well, these things I'll say to Krishna, because the more open and honest you are in what you express, the more your heart will soften and trust, because Krishna reciprocates when you open up to him. He'll show you that he heard what you said and that he's there for you. So that's one of the ways. And another way is like mentors, friends, like practice opening up to a friend or a mentor. Choose someone that you trust, that you know will be there for you, is trustworthy, you know, a good devotee. And open up in the same way, in a very, very vulnerable way. Get all the dirt out and also all the good things. Just share everything, and let that person be there for you, and that will practice you heal, and that will help you practice opening your heart and heal whatever's caused it to harden. I wanted to ask you if you have any ways of opening the heart.
Yeah, I feel like the more that I let go of the past, the more space and time that I make for the Lord to come in.
And that's really good. Yeah, that's really, really good. I'm gonna get to something similar to this. Yeah, letting go of the past, focusing on the present occupation, present devotional service you're doing. What can you do now? Not what could have you done then. Good. Anything else?
Like whenever I get down, I say something.
Yeah, practicing humility, getting down on your knees is like vulnerability, right? So you're like kind of physically opening up. That's good as well. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, expression is so important, because even if you know it for yourself, if you keep it to yourself, you're keeping a barrier. If you share it with the trusted one, or you share it with Krishna out loud, like I've noticed, like even if I write it, it's not enough. I have to speak it. Then it's out of the body, and you're really like opening up. Okay. My last point is that, again, in the Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada says that a devotee is never subjected to lamentation and illusion, and he's not disturbed by material loss. So why am I saying this? Is because earlier I mentioned how whatever happens in your life is, you know, direction. It's God's will. There's a reason behind it, and if we stay stuck on something that happened to us, which was really painful, and maybe we feel angry about it, then we are in lamentation. And lamentation doesn't help you in devotional service. And that's often, that's something that I've observed in myself a lot, and also a lot in the movement. It's like, in the movement, I mean in people, it's like trying to be humble, but actually like you're kind of diminishing yourself. And the reason why we do this, or the reason why I do this, is because, oh, like this happened to me. So like that means that like I have no worth, or like I'm useless, and like I don't even deserve Krishna consciousness. Like, you know, these kind of thoughts, which are like totally not gonna help you in bhakti. Kalakanta Prabhu told me in a meeting that we are much more critical towards ourselves than we think Krishna might be. Like Krishna doesn't criticize us. He doesn't see all of our faults. He focuses on the good things. He's like, oh, this devotee like did this wonderful service today. And that's what he remembers. Not all the tiny mistakes you made. Like you're expected to make mistakes. Like we're all on the path of to perfection. We're not into perfection yet, you know? So if you have setbacks, if you make mistakes, don't beat yourself up. Don't get down on yourself. Like it's okay. It's totally normal. It's totally acceptable. Just don't deviate from the path of bhakti. Come back and keep making efforts in your devotional service. Krishna will not give up on you, so don't give up on Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. You said that everything that happens in our life is will of the Lord. Once I heard that everything is sanction. Not everything is will of the Lord, but everything is sanctioned by Krishna. And could you tell the difference? Speak of the difference between sanction and desire that Krishna has for us?
Yeah. When I say it's the will of Krishna, I don't mean that this is what he wants. Will of Krishna just means that like he it's like you said, he sanctioned it, he accepted it, like it's per his will, because it's like, you know, we're put here as per Krishna's will, but it's not that Krishna wants us to be here. He just allows it to happen because it's our desire. So Krishna's will means that, you know, he accepted it to happen. And so when in relation to bad things, it's like, if something is meant to be, he will sanction it. So even if that thing seems to be negative, if he sanctioned it, there's a reason behind it. He knows like the whole scheme of like all the material laws, all of it. So if you did something 1,000 years ago, like thousands of years ago, and you still haven't paid your karma, and now is the time, then he'll sanction it, you know? And if you're Krishna's devotee, and a similar situation, you did something really bad in a past life, and you haven't paid for it yet, and if you were to pay for it now, it would take you away from him, then he'll just buy karma, you know? And that whatever you were supposed to suffer for will just be gone. But if that thing that you're meant to suffer for because of something that you did will actually bring you closer to him, then he'll let it happen in your life. And that's how it works for devotees. So, yeah, the loss of someone, like something really bad, sometimes pain, heartbreak, and suffering, like Queen Kunti's suffering, brings devotees closer to Krishna because it forces you to have more faith in him and depend on him more. When you have no one else to depend on but Krishna, then your relationship with Krishna becomes very strong. Did I answer?
Yes, thank you very much. So it's safe to say that Krishna's desire at times can be different from his sanction.
Yeah, because Krishna doesn't want people to suffer, like, doesn't really want people to suffer, and he doesn't want us to be apart from him. His desire, like the reason why we exist is to enjoy with Krishna. That's the reason of our existence. So he doesn't want us to be in suffering. But he sanctions it, and the reason why we're here is not because of his desire, it's because of our desire. And that's why he accepted it, because he loves us and he gives us this tiny little bit of freedom. Any other question? We're up? We're out. Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki.